Hey everybody, Dawn Zoldai here, CEO of P3 Tech Consulting, publisher at Autonomy Global, and this is the worldwide premiere of Blue Arrow's RII C2 stack. So think about it, folks. What if one soldier, one single operator, could command a collection of distributed drone assets all at the same time? And I'm not talking about in a lab. I'm not talking about in a simulation. I'm actually talking about near the front lines of the most drone intensive conflict in human history. This is not a concept. That's exactly what Blue Arrow has built. And so today we're going to be talking about this. It's called RII. It is the command and control stack that's rewriting the rules of the battlefield for battlefield management, asymmetric warfare, and critical infrastructure defense. This is it. And I'm so happy to have with us Olga Pogoda. She is with Blue Arrow and here to tell us all about this. So welcome, Olga.
Hello. Thanks for having me, Dawn.
Well, it's so great to have you. Now, people may know you, Olga, from your work in Pittsburgh robotics and in that community. You obviously have a foot in Pittsburgh and in the Ukraine. Tell us about the origin story of Blue Arrow. It's really unlike any company I've ever encountered.
Well, I think like many American companies and many American folks, after the full-scale invasion, a lot of us came over here and we're trying to figure out ways we could help contribute. And I took my company that I was with, my CEO, my two CTOs, head engineer, took them here to Ukraine. And within less than a week, we realized we were just so far in over our heads. And the scale of production here was so much quicker and greater. And the need here was so great. And we very, very quickly realized we would need boots on the ground, Ukrainian partners, if we ever wanted to make a difference. So we met with some folks here in Kyiv and just, fell in love with them. They're great guys, and started working together. And within about a year, we basically started developing various concepts and raised money for this company, Blue Arrow. We realized that a US UA partnership was the strongest way to go. And now we have offices in Pittsburgh and in Kyiv, and we're growing.
And I met Sergey Terashenko before, right? So Sergey is really kind of the mastermind behind this. And he really cut his teeth, if you will, in the IT world, building VR or virtual reality, augmented reality training tools for energy and logistics clients. Really before he met you and before the invasion. And I remember talking to him and how inspired he was. We need to do something here. And so that's who you partner with, right? Him and his team. And, it's been incredible ever since. What did that pivot look like? I mean, he was full up doing VR, AR training. And now all of a sudden, like, let's focus on command and control. Let's focus on essentially one-to-many operations for, the people in the battlefield that need it.
Yeah. So you are absolutely right. He's the mastermind behind all of this. He's a very, very smart guy. And when the full-scale invasion happened, him and his company, they used their skills in VR to create training manuals and assembly manuals for frontline operators for drones. But he didn't feel like that was enough, and he wanted to do more. And one of the really great things about working in Ukraine is that you have direct access to frontline operators, to command level folks, to every type of person you could really think of within the structure. So we spend a lot of time talking to people and trying to find out what are their biggest issues and what are the challenges, what are the difficulties, and then we pick the things that based on our skill sets and looking at our teams, how can we actually solve this? How can we turn it into a reality? And that's how, that's how we got to C2. It's by talking to hundreds of people that this is exactly what they asked for.
Well, look, when you think about kind of a David and Goliath scenario, that's exactly what we're talking about here, right? So, the pinnacle of asymmetric warfare. And I remember speaking with both of you and this idea that, how dangerous it was for those soldiers, for those troops out on the front lines, especially the drone pilots, because they were so good. They were like the primo targets, right? So, that I know was part of the impetus behind this command and control, this idea, well, look, we have to do more with less. We have to protect the people on the front lines. But you know what? This is not just a Ukrainian challenge. This is really, your technology is relevant for far beyond that battlefield, this one conflict, because it's a challenge that everybody, I think, faces. So let's dive into the technology. I know that's why people are watching, and we're really excited to talk about it. So first of all, RII, R-I-I, tell us what that means. That is a Ukrainian word.
It is. So it is, RII means swarm in Ukrainian. And what we work on is not just swarming, but it's more distributed assets. So you can think of one person controlling not just thousands of, one-way drones. It's hundreds of different types of UAVs. So you may have an ISR asset, you may have a bomber, you might have FPVs, and they all have their own jobs to do, but you have one person that's controlling all of it.
Wow. Honestly, it's so mind-blowing because here in the United States, Olga, like just on the civil side, right? We don't have 108. I don't think anybody could even think about like one person controlling not only 3 drones in general, but 3 completely different kinds of drones. So architecturally, what does this mean? In other words, what does redo? I think we have a little clip to maybe show some background here. Tell us what we're looking at.
Yeah. So taking a step back, what you're seeing is prior to takeoff, a operator could plan a mission. It's pretty simple. But not only are they planning a mission for one drone, they have an inventory of drones that they can choose from. And they can pick, they can set different waypoints, and each of those assets can fly and do the job that it is assigned. At any point, a pilot could manually take over and switch directions, replan, or finish the job manually on their own. So what you're seeing right now is a live feed from a camera that's returning home from a mission that it completed.
So as you think about this conceptually, like RII is a command layer on top of the operational layer, basically. And so in terms of like ISR as one example, what kind of, what's the goal there in terms of like the length of time for monitoring, like on the battlefield?
Thank you for the softball question, Dawn. So obviously on the battlefield, 24/7 monitoring is really, really important. So we have, on top of what the operator can plan, we have an additional command layer. So with this high level command layer, you can look at different sections of the front lines, and you can send out multiple or singular, or however many ISR assets that you have. And once their mission is complete, what they're actually doing is bringing a lot of valuable information back to the operators and back to the command layer, or to the command. So what we're doing is taking that data and creating digital twins of the battlefield that immediately informs us what to do next. So command layer, you can plan a bunch of different missions. You send them out, you break them down into smaller submissions, operators complete those submissions, and there's just this circular, feed of information at all times.
Well, I'm wondering, Olga, I think I know the answer. So maybe this is yet another softball question for you. Um, with Sergey's background in AR, VR, and this data you're talking about on that back end, besides the FPV video we saw, like streaming
Mhm.
live, right? It's essentially live. Um, can the system create like digital twins of a battlefield if you have like a mapping drone as an example? In other words, like I'm a commander, I'm going to send out my mapping drone first to scan the area, come back, give me a 3D map. Now I'm going to send out maybe my attack drone, maybe an ISR drone, and maybe two protection or counter drones, counter
Yeah.
drone drones all at once. Is that a possibility with this system?
That is absolutely correct. However, things move so quickly on the battlefield
Yeah.
that the feedback that we are getting currently is while there may be time to do this mapping of the battlefield, you actually want to have additional assets out at all times. Because if you spot a target, there's no reason why you should wait for,
Yeah.
this for the drone to come back and give you this information, and then you download and you get approval, right? Like this takes a
Right.
very long time.
Right.
The What we're trying to do is shorten this time from we see a target, you have to take it out. There's always a human in the loop. But that time of decision making is quite shortened. If we see something, you take it out.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of so it's almost like this idea of multiple drones simultaneously has become a battlefield imperative. In other words, I'm not just sitting on a mapping drone waiting around. I'm sending out essentially my diverse fleet. And so as I'm mapping, if I see a target, I'm not waiting around and taking that thing out. That's amazing. Give me some other real world scenarios. I mean, we just kind of, I think, went through a really viable one. But the image we saw earlier is like 4 drones. How many assets can RII control at once, or can a commander through RII, right? Like orchestrate, I think is maybe the better word.
Yeah. So there is currently a limit in our system, at least, to how many drones we can bind together into like a single operator
Like a
that can
packet.
control. Yeah. And that number is 50.
No,
So
wait a minute. That number is 5050.
that number is 50. That's
Oh
the
my God.
max
That
that
seems kind of incredible. Yeah.
well, it's interesting because I've seen, I think we've all seen swarms of thousands of drones at the same exact time. And I think there's like a very particular use case for something like this, right?
Mhm.
But I think it's more challenging for us, at least, when you have, the different distributed assets and they're all flying at different altitudes, so they don't run into each other and they have to communicate with both us and each other. And yeah, it's just a little bit more of a challenging problem. So
Yep.
50 is our max. That's all the hardware currently allows us to do. But we do hope to get to more in the future. So another really interesting operational scenario that we've discussed and that we'll show, hopefully we can show later, is this idea of a rapid fire mission. So you may have multiple assets that have, munitions attached, and you send one, then another, then another. So right, they're going right after one after the other to attack a target, and then they return right back to home when they're done. So that works really well when you're using small drones to attack larger targets like tanks or armored vehicles, because a singular drone might not be able to, take out something so big and powerful. But if you can rapid fire, and if one person can control that and send,
Yeah.
well, that makes things a lot easier for those operators and keeps them safer.
It's like a machine gun, but with drones, essentially. But let me ask you though, because we talked about that diversity of the drones that RII can help orchestrate. Are we talking primarily small ones then, like as a practical matter? In other words, we're not going to have like a in the in the U.S. military, we call it like Group 4s, Group 5s, like think Predator, Reaper, like the really large, like 16,000 or to the 30,000 feet above ground level. We're talking small UAS, right? With RII.
Yeah. So Group 1 through 3 is what we're targeting.
Gotcha.
I do hope that, at some time in the future, the idea of something like a Reaper, like a larger Group 4 or 5, I think that's totally feasible, right? They're just ISR birds, right? So I do think that's feasible in the future. However, right now, we are mostly focused on assets that are really not going to have such a lifelong lifespan as, a Reaper.
Well, that's a great segue, honestly, because you're talking about lifespans, and that in my brain triggers resilience, right? Because we know that the battlefield is just chock full of electronic warfare. There's spoofing, there's jamming, of course, GPS denial in general, and whatever means possible. So, what are the hardening capabilities kind of underneath the hood, if you will? Because that is really critical, I think. We learned this from what we're seeing in Ukraine, right? But we're seeing it everywhere globally in terms of battlefields. How does RII handle that?
Yeah. So we take off assuming that our GPS and all of our comms are going to be jammed. So we use GPS navigation for that.
Okay.
And we have a payload that attaches onto the aircraft. It has a camera and some other sensors on board and provides that GPS denied navigation from home to target and back, or just one way. In addition, the payload also provides targeting, ballistic calculation, and other additional autonomous behaviors that help to reduce cognitive load and take the pressure off the pilots.
Okay, well, that's first of all always key. But when one pilot is operating multiple drones and different kinds of drones on different missions, having increased autonomy, like what you're talking about, is critical. So I think we have a video maybe to show some of these capabilities, or at least illustrate it. So what are we looking at here?
Sure. So here what you're seeing is our diagnostic. The green is GPS and the blue is our trajectory. So basically what you're seeing is as soon as we take off, we get spoofed immediately. Green, if we would have followed GPS, we would have ended up completely off target. But blue is our actual trajectory. We're following, the mission plan and where we're supposed to go. And you can see that if we would have listened to GPS, we probably would have ended up, completely in the wrong place.
Yeah. That's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stories about drones falling out of the sky, drones not being able to take off, losing very, very expensive assets. So having that denial capability is pretty critical for us.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think that's what separates battlefield grade command and control, or C2, from commercially available just drone management software, right? I mean, GPS, it's, don't assume you're ever going to have it. I mean, assume it's going to disappear and comms are going to be jammed, but yet the system still has to function. So that's a really fundamentally different design requirement, and you guys built to that. So let's talk about the brains. Not Sergey, he's the human brains. Let's talk about the robot brains, the software brains behind this. I know you guys call it MZK. So this is your kind of the brain at the tactical edge. Software is powerful, but it has to live somewhere. So tell me a little bit about this hardware.
Okay. So there are more expensive aircraft that have a lot of really cool sensors and a lot of compute. And in that case, we can just embed all of our solutions directly onto the aircraft. But a lot of times, drone manufacturers, they already have a lot of stuff, a lot of compute that's dedicated to other functions. They don't have the right sensors for us. And so we've built this payload, which you can see just attaches to the belly of a drone.
Okay. Now, okay, I'm looking at this thing, Olga. So just for context,
yes,
it's almost like the size of an old school CD, like in terms of like the dimensions of it. How much is it? So we're attaching this to drones, ones that are going on the battlefield. How much does this thing weigh? Like, give us some of the 5Ws about your MZK or Mozok.
It's about 250 grams. So it's pretty light. It just attaches to the belly of an aircraft. It connects through UART and communicates directly to the autopilot of the aircraft.
Okay.
On board, it has pretty low cost sensors and compute. So we're talking about a Raspberry Pi 5. We're talking about a pretty low cost camera, an IMU, and a laser rangefinder. That's about it.
So I'm going to use this term, and maybe we'll coin the phrase attachable autonomy. Because you've created this box, you like put on this drone, and all those things you talked about previously, the targeting capabilities, the visual navigation, fleet management, terminal guidance, ballistic calculators, all inside that little box.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. Very, very cool. So I remember you and I talked about this before. This is the current configuration. Your long-term goal, though, is maybe to move away from the need for an attachable autonomous hardware. Tell us kind of what's on the whiteboard in terms of the next phase of MZK.
Yeah. So just to be frank, we're not hardware producers. We don't know how to manufacture anything. Now, there's really smart people that know how to do that, and they make really awesome drones. So our goal is to be as hardware agnostic as possible and be able to integrate in a tighter package to existing setups on aircraft. Most drones already have a Raspberry Pi 5, and adding one more is really not that challenging. Most of them already have numerous cameras, right?
Yeah.
And so for us, where we want to go is to really just do software-only deployments and rely a lot less on adding weight and cost and kind of duplicating things that already exist.
Yeah, I mean, moving to an OS model to have a complete proprietary stack is not to have a proprietary stack, right? Is a really smart move, because that architecture will scale, and so that's going to be, I think, really key. Let's zoom out for a second, and I think one of the most strategically important concepts here, not just for the battlefield, but critical infrastructure, defense, border security, port security, energy, facility protection, maybe even public safety, is this idea of the one-to-many drone asset management. I mean, that's really, at the end of the day, where we want to be, I think, as an industry, not just on the battlefield, but commercially as well. So tell me a little bit about, kind of where you are. You said multiple times, there's a human in the loop, there's a human in the loop. We're talking 50 assets. Maybe you guys get to 100, maybe you get to 1,000, whatever it's going to be. There's a point where maybe having humans less in the loop would be the more ideal scenario. Tell us kind of about where you are in that sliding scale of autonomy, with humans in the loop, humans on the loop, or maybe humans even out of the loop at some point.
I think that's a very challenging and almost ethical question, right?
Yeah, sure.
I think there are countries that allow, machine learning based like decision making, and certainly our enemies, and if they have that option, I would imagine they would take it every single time.
Right.
So it's very challenging it's a very challenging decision to make. So we follow our laws, and both in US and Ukraine, we do not permit strike without approval. However, we do think that the time between approval could be shortened through our software. So, for example, the pilot, the commander, and anybody else could be seeing things live at exactly the same time and making that decision together. You can see if you can have an ISR asset, and within seconds, you can see like, hey, there's a target and there's already a drone right there to strike it. Well, that time is a lot less than, oh, well, I have to launch this other thing, or I have to, spend hundreds of $1,000s on shooting a missile from an MQ-9, right?
Yeah.
So,
or an F-15E, I think is what they were doing a while ago.
Yeah. So it's, I think we're playing by the rules. And if at some point that changes for our governments, then we can make that decision as a team. But it is a very, to me, this is like an ethical issue that we would have to discuss with our team and our engineers to see how they feel about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one to many, human in the loop, underline human in the loop. But, like I said, this is applicable well beyond conflict zones, right? Because as you think about critical infrastructure operators, whether it's power grids, pipelines, water treatment plants, ports, they're using drones, right? They're using them persistently for surveillance. They're for perimeter security, incident response, disaster response. Where does RII fit into that picture in your assessment?
So in Ukraine, there's actually quite a few initiatives already that focus on reconstruction and how do you make that happen? And also, how do you make that happen while you're in an active war zone?
Well, that's great. Yeah.
So, right, because why would you want to build something if it could just be destroyed the next day, right? Yeah. But there are multiple groups and there's funding and there's a ton of stuff going on here for rebuilding. So to me, RII can help with things like demining, assessing damage, and 24/7 monitoring of assets and of critical infrastructure, as you mentioned. Yeah. So there's right now, one of the other challenges that, when you're using drones for 24/7 surveillance, you're also dealing with like pretty common things of like, oh, this drone's gonna, like the power is running out. Yeah. And so then it takes time for you land it. You have to change the battery and you have to recharge it and then thing goes back up, right? And there's lots of really cool companies that are doing, like docking and charging. Yep. But this still requires multiple people. Yeah. So what if you could have a system that's doing it for you, 24/7 monitoring? One drone, oh, I can see it's low on power, send the other one, send the other one, send the other one. So we're thinking about very more, we're thinking about solutions that are not just military focused, but can have more of a consumer purpose in the future. Well,
when you think about that, you've battlefield tested, you've basically stress tested these solutions faster than any civil certification authority really ever could. So let's talk about like kind of validation, right? Like moving from certification to validation, like that pathway, because your story, a Blue Arrow's credibility story, is, I feel like, genuinely differentiated. There's a lot of companies out there that say we have the tech that that is battle worthy, but is it truly battle proven? And I think there is a difference there. So you mentioned it earlier, but I do want to emphasize this idea of frontline testing protocols that you all have implemented and where you are right now in terms of your evaluation cycle of the technology.
Pretty simple in Ukraine. The way it works is, nothing will happen for you until you've tested it at the front. If it works at the front, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So the way that we have developed to date, as I mentioned earlier, is we talk to units. We try to understand what are their needs, what are the different configurations of aircraft they're looking for, and then we bring them the solution. And in fact, I'm talking to you from Kyiv right now. I spent the last week, the last couple of nights in Kharkiv, basically working with one of our extremely friendly units, where they test solutions for us. They tell us what's wrong. Sometimes it's great feedback. Other times it's not. But, we're talking about some of the smartest, most like tech savvy people. And they're just constantly giving us feedback. So the protocol is that we test, about between 10 to 20 kilometers outside of the front line. If it works there, then great. It can be sent to the front. If it doesn't work, we take it back for changes. And then it's to be delivered to the front line. So for us, we actually have a contract and where we have to deliver quite a large number of units to the front by the end of this quarter. So that is very exciting milestone for us to not just be, tested near the front or kind of close, but having to be actually battle tested and to see the effects that it can really have.
Yeah, I mean, look, whether it's brutal, it's direct, and it's from the operators whose lives depend on it. So, it's honest, and that makes you better and that makes your tech better. So, you can't replicate that, like I said before, in a lab. But in the very beginning of the show, we talked about, your kind of footprint, if you will, 1 foot in the US, 1 footprint in Kyiv, and pursuing now, like not only everything that's happening in Ukraine and the battlefield and the validation and, the development, but also looking at deployment in the US. That's pretty aggressive two-front strategy, if you will, to use the battlefield terminology. What does your U.S. engagement look like so far?
Well, I think it's pretty important to be able to sell technologies into the U.S. market that we know will actually work. Our soldiers' lives are just as valuable as the Ukrainian soldiers' lives. So we had an incredible opportunity a month ago to pitch and show our solution to the 25th ID in Hawaii. And we will continue to increase our efforts in the US. We will actually be hiring in the US shortly. So if you're watching this and you're an engineer, please call me. And so the goal is to start working to basically not pivot, but to start splitting our time more and more and investing more into the US market.
Yeah, I mean, Indo-Pacific, completely different, I think, landscape in terms of what, a battlefield and mostly overseas would look like possibly out there, but challenges similar nonetheless. GPS denial, all the things we talked about, highly relevant. So I believe you guys are in the middle of a seed round. What does that look like? And what kind of partners are you looking for?
Yeah, we are in the middle of a seed round. We are looking to work with investors that are deeply experienced in MilTech. I would love advisors. I want someone to tell me when I'm making mistakes. And the same way that the operators are brutally honest and will tell you what works and what doesn't, I really want an investor to be as brutal with me as they are.
All right. Well, we are going to now end in a way that you described how your operations can go, rapid fire. So I'm going to ask you really quick questions and I want like that 30-second answer. Okay, ready? Here we go. Ready. What is the one thing people misunderstand about your C2?
People think it's a swarm, not a swarm. It's a distributed asset management system.
All right, very good. Biggest technical challenge that you have yet to solve?
Oh, probably the integration time that it takes to get on multiple different aircraft and, work with their different configurations and setup and autopilot and sensors and it's a slog. It's hard. Yeah.
It's hard. Okay. One capability on your 12-month roadmap that you're the most excited about.
I am very excited for air-to-air comms. So creating a mesh system where drones can communicate with one another.
All right. Very good. If a critical infrastructure asset owner or operator is watching right now, what is your one sentence pitch to that person?
Call me or email me.
That's very easy. Very good. And we'll have a QR code on here. You can, we'll have information in the chat as well. And then, of course, great segue to the last question. Where else can people connect with Blue Arrow?
We will be at Soft Week in May. Thrilled about that. And then if you're in Europe, we'll be at Latitude 59.
All right. Very good. Very good. So getting to the end here, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Blue Arrow was born, as you heard, in one of the most demanding operational environments on the planet. And what they have built reflects that. MZK, the hardware, isn't just a prototype for trade shows or for booths. It's a tool that's been stress tested 15 kilometers from the active front. And they're already heading to the Indo-Pacific, possibly, and NATO partner pipelines. Very exciting. Looking to come to the U.S., looking for partners. For those drone OEMs, those acquisition leaders on the defense side, critical infrastructure security directors, defense-savvy investors, Blue Arrow wants to talk to you. Call and reach out to Olga. You can find them at bluearrow.co and at some of those events we talked about, including Soft Week later in the year. That's all she wrote, everybody. I'm Don Zoldi for Autonomy Global Network. This has been a worldwide premiere of Blue Arrow's RII 2. We're out here. See you next time.